dentist. Then you never are late.
That's right. I just finally texted them and said, I'm bouncing out. Okay. So this actually probably won't take the whole time. Yes, I think we'll knock this out and be able to kind of move through this, summarize things. The organizational model it is a big and it's sometimes complicated. It is a big and sometimes complicated topic, but generally speaking, I'm gonna move through quickly. We're gonna talk about the fundamentals of creating your organizational model and like how to protect yourself from yourself when you do that. But overall, this model, kind of like the budget model, like the budget model is pretty much just like, here's the sheet and like, that's it, right? Rachel shared with me that after
We were all like,
yeah, that after I hopped out last week, that you guys were like, oh man. And I appreciate you working with me when we put this class together way back in end of April. I didn't realize that my whole staff would be on vacation last week.
yes, well, and I do have to apologize because at 10:30 I have a doctor's appointment, so.
Oh, all
didn't
good.
know that either,
All good. So, but it's kind of like that, right? So the budget model, like, it's like, here's the paper, right? Here's the, I'm actually gonna pull my book out. It's like, here's the recipe, use it, right? Oh, I lied. Repack it. As I was doing that. Oh, I definitely did. I left, you know where it is? Oh, there it is. My shift, the trainer's shift, like the one of the bound ones. So kind of like that, right? You have just like, here's the numbers, break it down, and then to run your own personal balance sheet and P&L. Kind of is what it is. The organizational model is a little bit similar, except the one difference that we have a very clear roadmap for organizational model. And it's built on best practices. It is not set in stone. And I'll share with you, Ryan and I, in general, we break the rule right off the bat. We have a partnership, right? Right off the bat. Now, I was in a coaching situation with an organization that has a retail team and an investment or flipping company. There's 3 people in leadership. Now, let's go back to the budget model. What's your profit? What's the 30, what?
40.
Okay, so 40 is the what? Profit. 40 should be the profit. So if you have a 40% of your organizational profit going to one person versus 3 people, how does that feel?
Very different.
Very different, right? So the budget model and the organizational model are like, they're like in a relationship because you need the financials to make sense. Another example, I think we see we don't see teams. There are some teams. We see a lot of blobs or globs. It's a group of agents that are working kind of it's like a life raft for agents as opposed to a speedboat for agents, right? Like we want to pool our expenses together. We want to pool for lead generation. We want to pool for accountability because honestly, like that's half the battle is having camaraderie and accountability. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're running an organization that's designed as a business. And the danger there is very much like going into business with your family, right? Where you look up one day and you're like, oh, this isn't quite working out the way that I thought it would. Okay, no harm. People work with family, but there's a reason why, like, so we already have an 80% failure rate in the industry in general. There's another reason why, the statistic on partnerships is like 90% of partnerships fail, right? When Rick asked me to do the podcast, I posted it on my Facebook, like it's on YouTube. He interviewed me for the podcast that he's doing. And he was asking like, how did we make our partnership work? And I was like, well, we just kind of over communicated and we just communicated through the ups and the downs and keep going. And that's it. But now we don't run under an organizational model. We've basically divided our business and we focus on different things. We have different business entities that we're running. And that is, so we've separated out. When we were running the team in production and operation, we essentially, what we realized later was we had divided between two roles. We divided between an operational side and a sales side. We didn't call it that at the time. We just kind of naturally fell that way. He's more organized than me. I like the sales language, the sales process, building out customer experience. Ryan has zero fluff to him for customer experience, and I have a lot. Really like to create a great customer experience. So then Megan came along and helped us from an operational perspective. So we followed the organizational model to a certain extent, but we were broken from the get-go in that regard. So I say that because I don't want to feel hypocritical as I show you this model and I'm like, didn't follow any of this, right? So
Joe, what
yeah.
would you say is the benefit to having a team and having, like, what's the benefit for an agent to be on a team?
I can answer that.
let's hear some reasons why you're better.
I was on 2 different teams for the entirety of my real estate career up until I joined KW. The initial team was because, like Melinda, I had relocated 1,500 miles away. I didn't know anything about York, Pennsylvania. I didn't know the difference between Dillsburg and Dallastown and Dover. Like, I had no idea. This was before cell phones, so like we had paper maps, it was really hard. So I didn't know real estate either. So for me, that initial team gave me the structure in which to plug in and learn the industry, learn the business, learn the location, and be told what to do. Here's a lead. Here's exactly what I want you to do. And, he had been in business at that time, 40 some years, and his success rate was through the roof. And so it was like, okay, I just do what he says. And, it was about year 5 that I was like, okay, I'd like to expand on some of this stuff and grow and do things. And that wasn't an option there. So I changed teams. And both of these teams were family based. And so I ran into like familial issues with the first one, and then the second one kind of ended up that way too. So initially the split, even though it's a sucky split, is worth it because of the training, the accountability, just, having the flyers, the paper, the Xerox machine, all that stuff of a business, the paper clips, the pens, just the crap. Like,
was it running like a business?
The first one absolutely was, because it had been like tuned so well after 40, 50 years. The second one, they said it was, but it absolutely was not. And the frustrating thing was that nobody would listen to new and fresh ideas. It was, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we'll always do it. And that's when I finally couldn't take it anymore and I bailed,
What's your perspective?
If you're going to give your money to somebody, you better get everything you need in return, or else do it yourself.
Well, see, that's
So
what
you
I'm
should get
I'm
leads,
thinking.
you should get support,
Mhm.
you should get materials,
Mhm.
you should get basically 24-hour
Yeah.
service from your mentor, which,
I mean, the thing why I didn't leave sooner was the admin.
a lot of people,
Like, that was the admin was what kept me there an extra year.
yeah.
Because I see a lot of teams that they don't give leads. Yes, they buy signs, they buy cards, but that's because their team name is on that stuff. And so if that is the only thing you're really giving to those agents, why is it benefiting them to give up 40 or 50% of their?
So I'm so glad we're starting with this conversation. I am.
Well, seriously,
Be-
because that
because
was
here-
in my
Training,
thoughts.
I would say training and.
Well, I'm not even
yeah,
sure a lot of them
exposure.
are getting the training.
Well, so they're
Well, in
not.
my case,
That's why they're globs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's why they're globs.
Yeah.
The
in my
difference
case-
between a glob and a team, the number one thing, if you go back, what was the first model we did?
I don't remember what they stood for.
Economics. L was
Leads.
leads. Okay, so there's a reason why they're in this order. So the economic model,
Right.
generally speaking, is what? It's the business plan.
Infrastructure.
It's the
Yeah.
business infrastructure. Then the lead generation model is how do you create enough leads to support the business structure? Now, here we are way back at the end of the organization, you're saying, well, if you're a team and they're only giving leads or they're not giving leads, where's the value? The reality is there needs to be enough other substance from a value proposition standpoint for all the rest of it to make sense. That's the reality. But a lot of blobs get together to share leads. So they're getting together, again, like all of these kind of like, they're all the reasons to get together because you don't want to do all the work. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
But that's really what it is, right? Like if you're running a business, so like a real business, you have a hiring process, which means you get a great admin. You have leads because you're running a business that's bigger than you, right? Once you run out of capacity for your own leads, what do? You give them to somebody else and you get a portion of that back, right? Now you've scaled beyond your individual capacity. Then how do you help other people convert at your rate? You train them on the skills that they need. Now we're starting to see a comprehensive value proposition that's not just, I'm here for the leads. Because the reality is, if you're just here for the leads, that's the lowest common denominator. Everybody's here for the leads, right? Like market centers are starting to distribute leads. So other companies make you very dependent because they give leads. I was talking to somebody last night who came from another company and they were like, well, the previous company had a relocation company and Keller Williams doesn't. I was like, well, we have 180,000 agents and we have a completely interfaced network that allows you to share and refer however you want with no split. What was the reload split? Oh, 47%.
Wow.
So if you're gonna
And then
do,
if you're on a team on top of that,
right,
you're like,
well, but
I work
yeah,
for
well,
frickin'
there aren't
free.
there aren't many teams at that company because they can't afford to have a team.
Right.
But so would you rather have an occasional relocation deal that comes with a massive price tag of 47%, but makes you feel good? Or would you rather turn and aim your lead generation efforts somewhere that are gonna replace that? It only takes one deal at a lower sales price to equal two of those, right? So the reason organizational model kind of comes last isn't because it's because it's kind of the growing up phase of the business. If you build out your economic model and you have a great business plan and you start to grow, and then you get more leads and you have more leads than you can service. That's the number one rule, by the way. Don't start a team unless you have more business than you can service. You are not starting it for fun or recreation or a hobby.
It's not fun.
It is not fun. It's running a business.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that you're gonna run a business, then you definitely don't head down that road, okay? Like, I think that there are ways that informal partnerships can work for a chapter of life. They can come, they can go. I think you can have referral agreements with people. You can have, like, even though that we don't have a formal team, like if I was gonna have a buyer that wanted to see more than 2 houses, I'd probably feel totally fine referring that to Kayla or Kate, right? Like we have a great relationship. I would have no issue with that. Doesn't mean we still run the formal team anymore, right? So that's okay. Just acknowledge what it is. Don't call it a team. Don't try to build out all that infrastructure. By the way, going and like getting an LLC started and like signing up with the state does not make you have a team. I see that all the time. I'm starting a team. First thing I did was all this. I was like, oh, you don't have a team. Like if you have more leads than you can service and you refer those to somebody else, you're way closer to having a team than going and getting an LLC started. That's the reality. Okay. So big organizations can look like this. And I think this is sort of like feels wild to see. Do we have any of these in our midst here at Keystone?
It should be Liz and
Liz?
Say Liz.
Mhm. Who else?
I would think that's, well,
I don't
think that's
know.
probably it.
Yeah, I don't know the
No.
Colby and Neal team well enough to know if they do
They-
or
they are not,
Mansour.
no.
I don't know. Like, I just don't know.
Oh,
that.
Dave could be, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say Dave's pretty disciplined and I'd say
He
he
is.
follows a model. And
Chambersburg should.
Dave, one thing that Dave does really well is Dave communicates, and I'm saying communicates, but he's disciplined between his budget and his organization. He makes sure to keep them in check. One of the biggest places that teams like crash and burn is that their models don't work together. So their lead generation model is not big enough to support their budget model. Very good friend of mine, and she and her business partner just bought a market center in Florida. And we talk fairly regularly, just kind of like about what's going on in the business. And their team, they might speak at Mega Camp on a panel, and they just burned their team to the ground. And she was like, Kelly, like KWRI is calling us to screen us and interview us for the mega agent panel. And she's like, I don't know what I have to offer them. Like, we just destroyed our team. And I was like, that's exactly what you have to offer. Because that is a lesson that a lot of people need to hear. We're not supporting enough listings was ultimately what it came down to. So the Rainmaker started to step out of the production side of things and was taking more of a Rainmaker position, which I don't know what that means, but they were just not, they weren't like,
Retired.
they weren't, at the age of 39 or whatever. But so they weren't driving the listings to replace their own production as they were stepping out, and they were trying to lead through other people. So they bring these new agents in, they're like, cool, we're gonna just add 9 people to the team and that will help us grow. Except it completely imploded because there weren't enough leads. So then your kind of part-timey agents start to fizzle out. Then you're running out of cash flow to pay your director of sales, your director of operations, your admin. Like they had followed the model in terms of structure. Like on the surface, it looked sort of structurally okay. But the one thing that had fallen apart was the lead generation, which made the budget fall apart and the organization went away. Now they're back to like 4, like the lead listing agent, lead buyer's agent, admin. That's it. They were like 15 people. When I saw them at family reunion, there were 6 of them there. The only people of that group that are still left are 3. So anyway.
I think that's what makes it scary when, the things I miss about being on a team is the ability, to go out of town and know that, you've got my back, you care if this transaction happens, you'll go show the property, you'll meet the inspector, like the same customer experience will still be there. That's the part like solo, that's what I miss, as well as like the collaboration of, hey, I'd love to let's do an annual event, like the brainstorming aspect, and then have other people help me to implement it. Typically they were my ideas and like other people would help implement them. By myself, I'm like, I have this great idea, but holy crap, I just don't have the energy, time, money to like the invitations, the follow-up, the chasing around, the setting up, the organization, like those are the things that I miss about a team.
So that's
Yeah.
real. And that human draw for collaboration is so dangerous. Because
it kept me there years and years
it will
longer.
attract you to that like a moth to a flame.
Yeah.
And so I think that this exercise that we're going to walk through, kind of like the different levels and the things that you need to master at each of those levels, will give you some perspective. Because like what you're describing there, it's like, okay, cool. Do you have all the things that you just labeled? Like, so take away the ability to collaborate and mastermind, which if you can create an environment where you can bring a group of agents together and create that environment in the office, then I would do that separate from a team. And then if you want to recruit into a team gradually, or have even a path to leverage that now exists that wasn't really as popular during this book, is like the showing agent model, right? Or the junior agent model. That like there's some ways to do that are a little bit more nimble than the book, which is a little bit stuck, right? And we've seen that actually. If you go back to this screen here, you see under the buyer's agents, they're showing assistants, right? But that's not a step 1 for leverage, but it could be something where you have productivity coaching agents, or agents who may not have enough business to support themselves, where all of a sudden you start to carve that stuff out and keep your financials in line.
I definitely think that should be like a redone model for a single agent. Because really and truly, if you're talking about the 80-20, the showing assistant could definitely take on a portion of that 20.
I think one of the things that changed dramatically that makes the model struggle, and it's a real conversation I've heard, but one of the things that has happened is that the market conditions have changed, where the ability to service, the difference in the ability to service buyers and sellers has changed a lot. It used to be like, so think when this was written, were there bright MLSs that were regional level? No. When this was written, was there even Zillow, Realtor.com,
Yeah,
cell
that's what I'm
phone, all
saying.
of that?
Like
No.
all of that.
So the buyers kind of changed their behavior. Now it's much more of a service oriented, right? It's a little bit less. Now, I think granted, we allow that, so we have to kind of rein that back and maintain a fiduciary and a strong relationship. The better you do, the better relationships you'll maintain. But I think in this world where that's a little bit faster pace, it's a little bit more service oriented, and lack of inventory and time on market conditions just in the last 2-3 years, that is what makes the showing agent model so much more desirable now than it was then. Because in a balanced market, without all of that free information flowing to the consumers, did it really, like, what he talks about is what you needed to do. I remember when we first moved to York from Carroll County, from Maryland, it was exact process that he described here. You go to the office, you sit down, you looking through the MLS. At that point, they would print out, a whole folder full of the MLS sheets. Like,
Yeah, you have your hot sheet.
yeah, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, look at this property. Like, that would be so great to go see. We weren't shopping from Carroll County on Zillow 6 months
Right.
before we moved up. That wasn't how it worked, right? That was in 96, right? So anyway, so these are the areas of mastery, and I'm gonna buzz through these because like this is really critical. So for you, individual level 1 team is personal productivity, which is lead generation, conversion, buyers and seller agreements, buyer and seller marketing, contracts, getting your deals to closing table, managing the money, and having mindset and vision, right? Mindset and vision, by the way, is economic model. It's your GPS. Okay. So thinking in terms of like, am I ready for a team or should I have a team? Like I can think of teams that exist with like 10 people that don't even do these things well. And that should be the first level of building out an organization and having a successful business.
I will say, I think Michael Hargett, now he just started, but I think he is on the right road
Yeah.
to following the KW model and building a team the way it's meant to be built.
It starts at level 1. You can usually sniff out the right trajectory pretty early on. Yeah, I like Michael. I like what he's doing.
If you mess it up, it's hard to fix it.
Yeah, that's why the team's burned to the ground,
Yeah.
because they build on a rocky foundation. They get to like 6 people, and they have to do it again. And Ryan and I did have to rebuild. Part of it was our move to Keller Williams, not the whole team changing. So, okay, level 1. Yeah, if you want to take a picture before I slide over to the next one. All right, so at the second level, this is when you're mastering the hire. And if you think of a team, and you just said it, this sometimes becomes the glue to everything that happens afterwards.
Amen.
So that's why it's such a critical hire, because and the note here, pro tip, until you have an amazing administrative person, don't hire anyone else. The ceiling of your individual capacity is going to have a ceiling based on your weakest characteristic. Organizational skills, grit, sales skills, something's gonna break, and that'll be your ceiling. The administrative person that you bring on becomes the next ceiling, because they're your leverage to get past your ceiling. Okay, so if you and the real not trickery behind the organizational model, the real purpose of organizational model is leverage to bring in all of the different facets of the transaction of running a successful business, and eventually having people own each portion of it. So if you go and you look back at that 7th level team structure that I showed you, you own all of those jobs now until you hire yourself out of those seats. Like, do you have a director of sales? If you're by yourself, do you have a director of sales? Yeah, it's you.
Yeah.
Do you have a lead listing agent?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's you too, okay, right? So like, that's actually the interesting thing is building, you could go back to that slide and that stuff is available online. You could go back to that, you could put your name on all the seats and you can kind of see, like, how do I do at each of my jobs? If I was my boss, if I was the CEO of my team of one, how would my employee review go? Well, you need improvement here. So,
The Boston McMahon.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're moving to that second level of the team, now you're starting to work through hiring, training, and accountability. Honestly, this by itself, even big organizations, Liz Hamburger team, right? So Liz is the retail extension of the Integrity First Home Buyers organization of all the investment. We have like 40 employees over there. And this right here is honestly the crux of leadership and getting maximum results. If you can master those three things, you can go really far, even with other things being broken. The third level, so you have your admin, your first hire. By the way, how many people know or have seen a team where the very first hire is another agent? I'm gonna get my buyer's agent. Okay, well, that's weird. I don't see that on this organizational chart. We're 3 layers in. Layer 1 was you, layer 2 was the first admin, layer 3 is the second admin. Now, were you raising your hand or were you just?
Kind of, but I don't want to interrupt your.
Go ahead.
Okay. Would you recommend for your first hire an in-person admin, or could it be a virtual assistant?
So that's a great question. You have to think about what you desire from that. So I'm gonna say this with a very loving and open heart and mind. I find that most virtual assistant admins, specifically non-domestic, require very binary instructions. Do this, then this, if this, then this, okay? Because they don't want to subjectively mess up. They don't want to be caught making a decision for you. Very, very common. And I had Ron, if anybody ever met Ron, he was my executive assistant for almost 3 years. And he was from the Philippines. I mean, we changed his life. Like I'll never forget when he was like, set a goal to buy a MacBook and got it. Like, and that's, I mean, a multi-$1,000 purchase in the Philippines is a big deal, right? Actually, I almost used the coffee cup that he sent me. That was the #1 coach. So, so I have a very soft spot for them, but Ron would have been a fraction of as successful if I didn't have Megan here helping to build those things out and leveraging to Ron. And then when I went to become a MAPS coach, Ron was my admin for that, which is a different skill set because I had a roster of 26 coaching clients. So it was like fill my 26 spots and organizing my calendar that way and making sure that everybody had their email reminder for tomorrow's coaching session. Like it was very binary in that regard, and he just grew with that role. So I would be very cautious about your first hire being virtual for those reasons. The other thing is right now you're seeing kind of the same thing with the showing agent model happening here, where actually you're not necessarily breaking down here, and as commission pressure is going down, the idea of like, how do you feel about adding a $50,000 expense this year?
That's a little scary.
It is a little scary, but how do you feel about adding a $15,000 expense first?
Yeah.
Right? So we're seeing that these are getting a little muddier right now because you can do this per transaction. And right now, the way the market's gone, thinking back to buyers and seller behavior, buyers have become very service oriented. This is a very service oriented transactional like hire. This hire is more of an operator hire, right? And so you can get away with this hire to scale for a decent amount, but you just have to know that you're going to keep more of the work that this person did, which is like helping you leverage out lead generation and customer experience. Yeah.
How can't those two positions be one person?
They can. Actually, this person, the level 1 or the level 2 hire is both.
Okay.
You only go to this when your person here exceeds capacity.
Okay.
There are a couple of people that have nailed this. How many transactions do you think this level of team can do?
120,
How many?
120.
It's over 100.
Wow.
It truly is.
I think one person can do that.
So I've seen, you're saying with
Seriously,
just one admin?
or
Just
like
one
a single
admin. I've
agent?
seen single agents.
I've seen a single agent hit upper double digits, like 60, 70-ish. I've seen with an admin north of 100, and with this structure into the 120 range.
Mm.
But it requires a tremendous amount of discipline. The systematic approach to it has to be like super in the lane.
Yeah.
So that's the hard thing.
So
I have a comment on the virtual, in Wisconsin, the office right next to me, I used to be part of the team when I first started and saw very quickly it was not gonna work for me. But anyway, they had a virtual assistant and we had so many complaints because it was from the Philippines, language barrier when they had to contact anybody. We had so many complaints because they didn't understand the questions. They didn't understand some of the stuff that was going on. Anyway, we ended up getting rid of all of our virtual and having them in-house. Just because of communication barriers that happen and no fault of anybody's, it's just that's what it is. And
I have a VA from the Philippines. I've had her for 1.5 years. She speaks very good English.
if you can get one, that's awesome.
Rick Keller actually helped me interview.
Through Cyberbacker?
Yeah,
Yeah, there are a few VA companies that do a great job of the onboarding process. Does anybody remember when Justin came here? What's his last name?
Oh,
was
to
he
talk
an
about the
agent?
cyberbacker? Yeah.
No, he
Oh.
talked about, what he actually talked about at that time was Facebook advertising. Justin
Oh.
Nelson.
That was a couple years ago.
It was a couple years ago. You guys remember him?
Yeah.
Do you know that he's now the CEO of one of the largest virtual assistant companies in the world?
Wow.
Yeah, they have like thousands of VAs. So he was like 19 or 20 years old or whatever. He was like super young when he came to teach about Facebook. His dad was a maps coach with me and Mike Nelson. I remember Tim actually, I think, was the one who maybe made that connection and set that up. It was like maybe Tim going to Rick or something like that. And he was like, yeah, this like really young guy. And he's like been calling me consistently to come in and teach. That's actually who he's become as a CEO. But yeah, there's a few companies that do a good job with it. And like I said, I mean, Ron he changed my life. I think I changed his life. So and he came from Cyberbacker. So like I've seen the positive impact of that. I do think that it has to be done right. You have to set really, really great expectations, be very clear with your systems and process. That helps a lot. The subjective places is where they struggle the most from other backgrounds. And over at Liz and Integrity First, they have probably 6 VAs. So level 14 is when you start to divide out to have a showing assistant under this model. So under this model, two things happen fast. You get 2 new departments. So in this model, you're the core of the business. This is the engine here, right? This is the fuel, which is leads. So having an ISA or OSA. Anybody ever walk by and see how Phil's always on his headset? He retains that. He works lead management at a very high level, right? In level 14, you outsource that. That becomes a separate hire. Now, in some teams, the CEO, the red, might retain certain things that they like to do or don't want to give up control of, but that's always at a cost of capacity, okay? The other side of that, so the 2 departments that you gain, one is the lead management side and one is the showing that this is starting to leverage out your agency side, okay? So you're the engine here, you have fuel here, and this is your fulfillment, okay? As you grow to part 2, you have 2 people on the lead management side, somebody being a director and somebody doing more dialing, and 3 people under the engine. This is actually the exact size that my friend's team got to before it imploded. And the problem was here, it was them. they weren't generating enough listings. And then on this side is your agency side, you have a lead buyer's agent and 2 showing assistants. This team right here can do 200+ units.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
At part 2, I've seen it. The discussion was, and I wonder if people understand, the CEO are the listing agents.
You are the lead listing.
Yeah.
You mean.
The
this is-
rest of the team does not list.
Yes, you maintain listing agent until the next one.
Yeah, and there was a big discussion of, locally here, like, I don't want to give up my listings.
So there's one thing that happens locally that's important to note about the organizational model. It's our average sales price.
Mhm.
Our average sales price, it's not, and I'm not saying this from a limiting belief thing. I've had this conversation at the MAPS level and they're like, there's a limiting belief. I'm like, no, it's math.
Yeah,
And well, it's way better than it used to be.
It is.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
yeah.
well,
It
so
used
we
to
have,
be
we have the,
$50,000, city properties.
so we have
give
the
them
office in
half of what-
Johnstown,
Mhm.
Altoona,
I
right?
did
Average sales prices there are maybe 110,
Yeah.
right? So.
Right, that's where York was 20
Yeah,
years ago.
so
you're
it's hard. There's
Yeah.
literally not enough money to go around. You take this model or that conversation where like, I don't want to give my listings up. You take that to Sarasota.
Yeah.
Average sales price is
Mm-hmm.
$600,000. There's plenty of commission dollars to go around and you can run a business very, almost, I don't want to say easily, but like, we have to grit it out more here. They have the luxury of more money to go around and they can build a team that way.
So it was the Dickerman team out in Philly, and so that their average is what, 350, 400,
Yeah.
easy, and that worked for them.
Yes.
So it was the conversation here, like, man, one, giving up your listing to the listing manager. Or
Yeah.
the listing.
So I see that where like sometimes with a lower sales price, a little bit of a hybrid or like split conversations where it's like, it's my listing, I'll give it to you, but I want an extra 20% override on that. Like, that's where it gets a little gobby. You just gotta be careful that it's like very well thought out there. But there is a reality and that's, again, Elbow, start with your economic model. You'll figure it out pretty quickly that if you give away a certain portion of your listing commission, you actually don't make money.
Right.
So like, you gotta figure out what that looks like, because again, my MAPS coach, she's in Irvine, California, average sales price is like $1.1 million. And like,
2-bedroom ranch.
right, oh yeah, so I think back to the days of Ryan and I running at where, a really solid month was 12 to 14 units in a month. 12 to 14 units in a month at $1 million. You're talking, there's so much GCI going around, it's very easy to run your organization. Oh, hire a $60,000 salary employee, no problem, right? For us, it's different, it's just different. So I say it with love for our local pains. So at this structure here, you're just scaling out those 2 departments that you've added on in the previous slide. So your lead management department, by the way, if I'm you and I'm thinking, if I wanted to take all these seats, right? And I wanted to grow business in this market, I'm thinking about this department an awful lot. Because you can leverage this out. VA can do a decent amount. There's a lot of technology that can start to fill in this lead generation, lead management side of things. If there's one superpower that we have at Liz and the parent company of Integrity First, it is this department. We set 82 appointments last week. Good data and good sales conversions in your lead management will make everything easier.
So when you say 80 some appointments though, so is that more because of the Eric side of it, because they're looking for people who are in distress? Or is that just overall real estate? Do you know what
So
I'm saying?
we actually don't market by distress anymore.
Okay.
We market for sellers, and we market based on motivational triggers that are the same ones that you would look for. Time in the house, equity, those types of things. we're just bigger this year.
So you're doing it more on the real estate side and not.
So we're setting those appointments for investment opportunities, but those trickle down into Liz. So it's the same call. It's literally the exact same call. It's funny because they're actually the same lead management department also services Liz's team. So they service the investment side and they service the team. We have a phone system that allows them to know which company the communications on behalf of.
Okay,
And it is the exact same sort of conversation.
okay. I was just curious.
Good question. So here, you're just scaling those departments up, your lead department and your agency department. Here, part two, even bigger, right? The only thing here, this is the first time when you're actually having a lead listing agent. What team in our region of York, Harrisburg, and Lancaster is this team?
Hook.
Hook. That's it.
What's Hook?
Dave
Dave
Hook.
Hook.
Or, I'm sorry,
Central
was
PA.
I don't know who that
Dave
is.
Hook. That's who does
Look
that.
it up, they're pretty awesome. They run it
They're by the book.
by the book. Yeah.
By the book. At level 6, you're talking about expansion. It's really the number one thing that changes. So now you have a sales director overseeing buyer side and listing side. This is, this is why it's gonna be quick. We have, like, we already, at really, like, Hook is between 5 and 6, because I don't know if he's doing expansion necessarily. But he does have a director of sales.
Mhm.
But like, there's one team in 25 counties that's really doing this well, but you, at least for you to see it and know that the math exists, this is what it looks like. So your lead generation, your operations becomes an entire department, and your sales becomes an entire department, and then you have the opportunity for expansion and potentially to have multiple businesses. So actually, Hook is here. You know what other business he just opened up? He's doing hard money lending. Yeah, and he's doing flipping, so he does have an expansion business. So he actually is at a level 6. In fact, he might even be a level 7, and the reason I say that is because Dave acts above the team. I think they have a CEO in that seat. So he might actually have made it all the way to level 7 in terms of that. Yeah, like Matt Madden and Dave, like they have one call a month about their real estate team. Yeah. So at level 7, you're focusing on replacing yourself and creating accountability. So one of the things that I would encourage is, you know, this is when your skill, and this is a big conversation, definitely too big for this, but you go from being a tactician to being a leader, being a doer to being a shower of doing. That's a different skill. I think one of the, you know, Eric, you were talking about Eric, I'm pretty limited on my social media, but one of the videos that I saw from him, and he did it maybe like 2 years ago, that stood out and really hit me, was that he was saying, like, I'm a great salesperson and I sucked as a leader for a really long time. He has done more work on his leadership and like being the leader that he needed to be. And that actually is what helped rise the organization up out of like basically being thought of as a not amazing flipping organization. Like they
That's,
flip 2 houses a month now.
that's
actually not even
huge of a leader, to look within yourself,
Yeah.
figure out your weakness and then correct it.
Yes, and he and his journey, like I left him, Brian and I both have left him twice, right? So like, it's true. So, but he went from tactician to leader and in a very purposeful way. Now he coaches other CEOs, like who run multi-million-dollar businesses. And so I would encourage you, even all the way down here. Boom, you're a leader. You just became a leader. Now, you're still very much a doer at this level, but you know, leading somebody is about the I do it, we do it, they do it model. It's showing other people how to do things the way that you want them to be done, right? Which is often like, how often do we see this in, I'm building a team and you get a project or you like want to do it and you're just like, do it, right? You go quickly to they do it, you just hand it off, then you come back and you're disappointed in the results.
Yeah.
So accountability becomes a very emotionally charged, weaponized conversation when that's what happens, because now you're like you're mad at them because they didn't do it the way that you wanted it done, but you also never set any expectations. So They didn't know that, so now they're feeling resentful, and then, right? So a focus on that, some books that you could read there, 5 Levels of Leadership. That's by John Maxwell. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Ideal Team Player, also by Patrick Lencioni. Those are just some great books that really lean into that journey of becoming a leader. What's that?
Can you repeat the last 2 again?
5 Levels of Leadership is John Maxwell. And then the second 2 are by Patrick Lencioni, Lencioni. And it's the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and the Ideal Team Player. Both awesome books. Should be required reading. We're not going to do this. I feel like these slides are actually from the business planning clinic. I feel like this section feels salesy about expansion. Expansion really struggles in our market because of the thing that I talked about before, which was average sales price. It struggles here.
So here's a question. So I heard a rumor that Dave Hook would like to get an office started in York area. But don't Keller Williams have like things about that they can't, like he couldn't come here with another Keller Williams office if there's already one here?
He can be outside of the York market territory. So he could potentially come to York-ish, but wouldn't be able to be within our footprint.
Wouldn't be able to have it per se office.
Correct. So he could be a mega agent office, like an expansion office of their team.
Okay, because I heard that he was looking, I don't know if it's true or not, it's just a rumor I heard too.
That's all right.
Well, I mean, look at, look at Remax Components that just opened on Queen Street.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, they're actually using.
Who is that?
Spring Grove.
Um,
I have a contract from him last night. They're
It's,
actually using the Spring Grove address.
Melissa Ruffing and Paul Berdner had, and so she left Remax either right before I did or right after I did, I don't remember. Anyway, but now she's back.
So, and brokerage expansion versus team expansion is very different. Because the value proposition has to be bigger for a market center or an office. A lot of these offices, so this is happening in the rural central Pennsylvania area that I service with the Pittsburgh office, is that you have these like small, specifically Realty One offices that are running so lean. And I know their model, I know their math, I do the math, it doesn't work. You just have to know that there's a bold law, don't judge your insides by other people's outsides, right? Like some of the, for the pride of owning an office, that's what you're gonna do, right? You're gonna lose money for the next 18 months for the pride of owning an office. So, now Dave's situation is different because Dave is specifically, I suspect, if he would look to come south, and I've heard he's actually looking in another direction as well. So fingers crossed he goes that direction. But if he's looking to do an expansion spoke of his hub, that's going to be for his team. And that would be different. Matt Madden's the operating principal of that Harrisburg office. And he and Ryan, we all have a really awesome relationship.
So I know Aaron just joined a team out of Maryland.
Yes.
That's coming up this direction. And that wasn't even an idea 20 years ago because again of our sales price.
Yeah.
The Maryland agents were like, why would I come up there, have to learn all new contracts for a $50,000 sale or for a $75,000 sale, and then have to do the split and then have to do costs. And then, it's now finally that our sales prices are, in the solid 6 figures.
North of 200 to 250, it starts to be okay. But even in the MREA, right, he's using $250,000 sales prices, but you take that into, there's plenty of markets that are 400,000. Philly suburbs, Baltimore, DC, the entire state of Colorado, right? There's so many places where you could go. There's other places where it's different, right? Like Wisconsin, 250-ish.
255.
Yeah, right. So there's places where it's not, but but Bob Lucido is not expanding to Wisconsin. I wonder why. Right? In fact, Bob Lucido didn't succeed
He
here.
didn't succeed here. Well, because,
Well, there were two factors. But It was the market and the people. And the
Yeah.
people are a really critical thing,
People are
right? So
critical.
finding talent and like aligning with talent is a really, really big deal. So to go down the path of the organizational model, it's something that you guys might want to consider, even at the point where you're like, maybe I'll just hire 1 or 2 people, is go to the career visioning class.
Yeah.
Like go to career visioning. It's just a phenomenal tool to have that we have that is excellent.
I gotta go to my doctor's.
We're actually wrapping up. We are wrapping up.
Perfect time.
Because part of so the organizational model leads to just kind of a general part of your business plan. So we've talked about, this is a picture of a 411, super tiny and granular there. But this is as you talk about what your organizational model is going to look like.
Virtual doctors.
This is a really, really awesome exercise. Can you, I'll read it through.
Yeah, I
It
was gonna
says,
say.
what are my areas of mastery? Rate yourself on each one between 1 and 4. I don't know why I said 4, but let's just call it 4. So lead generation, capture and conversion, presenting buyers and sellers, showing buyers and sellers and marketing, showing buyers and marketing sellers, writing and negotiating contracts, coordinating your sales to closing, right? Like listing coordination, managing the money, hiring, training, and accountability. And I think that if you're going to be honest with yourself about what you're saying, like, how do I know whether I should join a team? What should I create a team? Do this exercise and identify like, where are your strengths? Where are you knocking out of the park? I knock it out of the park at lead generation, capture, conversion, kill it there. Coordinating my sale to closing, not my jam. Right? So, okay, so maybe that means that my path to leverage needs to focus on the places that I'm weak. Something that is a really cool exercise is to figure out things I love and things I'm good at and make lists, and places where those converge, keep that job as long as possible. Things that you love, hold on to longer, and things that you're good at, you hold on less long than things you love. Okay, that makes sense? I said that really fast. Things I'm good at, things I love. All of those are good things, by the way. But the problem is we hold on to good things instead of doing great things. So the places where you're great are where you love it and you're good at it. Right? That's the middle. So hold that the longest. The next longest is you hold the things you love, because you'll wake up in the morning and do those. And then the first things that you give up of the things that are good are the things that you're good at but don't love. That's a cool exercise to do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but
Yeah.
this is my personal struggle. So when I know I need to hire someone to help me with the things that I'm not good at is figuring out command and lead gen in command. And that's why I keep leaning towards hiring a VA. Because I know I'm missing, I have a lot of contacts and past clients that I'm probably not staying in touch with as much, that I could be putting on, just keeping in front of them.
So are you specifically looking, now I'm gonna coach. Are you specifically looking to leverage for the lead generation aspect of command or for the organization of your data?
Both.
No,
No. Okay.
different skill sets. You have to
Okay.
decide.
Okay.
You can easily get your data in there.
Yep.
You just
Yeah.
need to buckle down and do it. And then the other person, which is probably a VA, can do.
Can help you with the
Yeah.
systemization.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's not the same. So if it's getting the data in, that's a 3-hour job, not a hire.
Okay.
If it is systematically working it and then handing you or like reminding you of that, that's separate. So when you go to the organizational model and you're thinking, cool, so like if I was to hire a lead admin, a main admin, what's the number one way that they're going to help you be more effective and efficient? And if it is, they're going to work my database for me and everything that comes out of there. If it's even lukewarm, I'll take it from there. I can create the relationship, nurture it, and turn it into conversion. Then that's a huge win. But so when you thought about those 3 departments, the lead management department, the engine, which is you, and then the starting to build out a sales department, which department would that fall into?
The higher,
If they were doing that, if they were nurturing your.
I would
leads.
say lead gen.
Yes. So then just know that you're holding those other seats until
Yeah.
you reach a point where the budget makes sense
Yeah.
for you to hire that way. Make sense?
Yes, and I have one more question to follow up.
What's that? What you got?
So would you, so for financial part of it, the
Mhm.
economic part, we all came off of a really good couple years and maybe this year isn't great. Would you consider making that higher when you're down in sales, or would you wait until, like, I'm probably like at half of what I did in previous years. Would you hire now, or is that being, if I know, and I feel like if I hired somebody that would help me generate more business. Like, would it be, because I know
Don't hire
like
out-
the whole red light, green light thing.
Yeah, don't hire out of hope,
Okay. Hire out of, okay,
hire out of purpose.
Okay.
So, from that regard, like I would red light, green light button everything up and batten down the hatches to be functional at the level that you're at. Build, understand how much growth does it take for me to make this hire make sense from a financial perspective, and then grow through that. But don't just say, I want to grow, therefore I will hire now, and have no linear pathway between the two. That's dangerous.
Don't you usually say that your hire should pay for itself?
Yes, you want a 4x on everything, potentially a 6x.
4 times back return.
Yes.
That just means right now I have to. You're eating
I
ramen.
think we all need to put more time.
So I'd love to hear any ahas. How was this? Was this cool to
Yes, I wish we'd get more into like the GPSs and stuff, like there'd be another
411s.
class to do,
you want to do that?
to help with
I can do that in July.
You're really good at that.
That's my jam. I like
Yeah,
that.
because I don't have the GPS. I had a coach for a year and I gave her up because I felt like I was getting nothing out of it. We were all over the place. We started a GPS, never finished the GPS. We started a budget, never finished the budget. I just felt like we were all over the place. And it was my first year at Keller Williams. And they said that I should be in the mastery because of my volume of business, but yet I felt like I didn't know Keller Williams stuff well enough. And I felt so overwhelmed with command and everything that I felt like we just kept skipping everywhere. So I never got any of this down, how to do it, what the purposes of everything were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the GPS, which is essentially an extension of an economic model in goal setting form, is that is that's a tool. Like you literally can go to go to the onething.com. And there's something there called the Kick-Ass Guide to Goal Setting. It's like a 12-page PDF. I've recommended this many times. Start there, just to read through that.
Okay.
Because reading it in the language of Jeff Woods and the One Thing crew, it's good just from a goal setting perspective. It kind of frames that. Start with that. I think that a lot of the MAPS coaches, so there's a gap and there's an emotional EQ gap at MAPS sometimes, because it takes a certain level of production to get there, but a lot of the time there's, I think, a lack of empathetic coaching to those types of things. A lot of the models didn't come natural to me. And I had to build myself up and build bunkers around those conversations with my clients. Cause I had clients that were killing it at the budget model. They were super organized, but were a train wreck on lead management. Right. So there were just different strengths. But just slow down. And this actually is the business planning clinic, is actually what I did. The business planning clinic goes through the 4 models. You can go into Connect and actually look the business planning clinic up from a student perspective. And there are handouts that you could use that would help you, and you could go through at your pace, and that will go a long way for you probably.
So in Connect, I go to the business planning.
Business planning clinic, yeah. But you'll be able to go and find the student materials there. Okay,
If I can just say one thing from, I lived that multiple times. And systems, like once you have your first hire, it's imperative that you make a system. They make a system. You either send them to training for the system, but the system is your backbone.
Yeah.
This is fine.
and just documenting everything as you go.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like the entrepreneur's curse, because like, it's like the stereotypical meme, like I joined real estate so I could have my own schedule and have my own life. And then we're like talking about time blocking and systems, and it's just like, wait a second, that's not what I signed up
There is
for.
no, that's.
Yeah.
So, but that, she's right, like, because it's, and Gary talks about this, systems create freedom, models create freedom. And it's such the middle place of those is so hard,
Mhm.
especially if we're not naturally inclined to systemization. Cause like slowing down to document, slowing down to create a system, it's just like, I just want to go, but going creates burnout, lack of achieving what you want to achieve and all that stuff. So I think these models create that, it creates a conversation around the basics, which we need to have. Some of them are a little bit harder to get than others, like the lead generation model. Now you see in the organizational, and when you're talking about teams and you're just like, well, if you're not like, a lot of the teams just offer leads, go back to the lead gen model. Are they generating like those massive numbers that like our eyes glazed over at 700 leads? Are those teams generating 700 leads? And the answer most of the time is no. And so then when you ask why they don't have enough value proposition to deliver to build a team, the answer is really clear. Because that was just for your goal, let alone for a team's goal. If the team's goal is 120 units and it takes whatever, 20%, if it takes, 1,500 leads in a database to achieve 120 closings, is the team actively working 1,500 contacts? And you're gonna answer most of the time, no. And then all of a sudden, all the models start to come together and you're just like, oh, I get it now, right? That economic model was my business plan. The lead generation model told me how many leads it took to achieve that big life I wanted to have. The budget model told me, am I making money? Am I losing money? Do I have enough in the bank account? And the organizational model told me what's the pathway to achieve all of that goal through people, right? And then the picture starts to come together full circle. So is that helpful to think about it like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions, ahas?
Are you gonna be doing another class? I was on vacation for
I can
3
do-
weeks, so I'm
Oh,
like,
good. I can do the GPS 411 class in July. I'll talk to Ryan and Rachel. They're probably putting the schedule together this week for July,
okay.
finalizing it. So
Because the
I'll,
411 is a powerful tool if you don't use it.
yes,
I've got a lot accomplished because of my 411.
yeah.
I would love.
My GPS has changed my life.
I would love any help
What's GPS thing?
Goals, priorities, and strategies.
with any of that stuff.
Also, geopositional
Yeah.
satellites.
Whatever,
Okay.
I didn't think it was that.
that would be great.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Yeah.
It was great.
And again, no matter how many times you hear it, it's like reading the Bible. There's always something new.